Hi, we are Group Chrome and we are here to report about Audiovisual Center Automation System. I am the group leader, Gilbert Orcine, and my associates, Tolentino Gerwin and Reyes Angelo, which will introduce themselves later. So here's Reyes Angelo to report about uh, the company overview.
Hi, so I am Angelo Reyes here to report about the company background. So the company is named the De La Salle College of St. Benilde, located at 2544 Taft Avenue, Manila. And the services that they offer is basically tertiary education. So here's a sample of the company logo. Now we move on to the competitors that DLS USP faces. So there we basically found two competitors which are UST or the University of Santo Tomas, MIT or Mapua Institute of Technology. Okay, so there we go. Next we move on to the type and number of customers. We have found two types of customers which are mainly made of the students and the faculty of DLS CSB. Next we have found three types of transactions which are mainly composed of borrow, reserve, and return. So next we move on to the statement of the problem. The ABC is one of the most visited facilities in DLSCSB, and with that fact, the large number of people visiting and making transactions will be more numerous. And even though they already have a certain way of processing their transactions, which are basically made or composed of borrowing, reserving, and returning equipment, the process is still somewhat slow because of the lack of automation that is needed. Errors at this time do not have that much um, do not have that much of an impact on the ABC because it doesn't happen as often as seen at times. But there are still problems that occur, like slowness of transaction speed. Some equipment tend to have problems, or the faultiness of the equipment may vary. The slowness of the penalty payment as made by late returning of the equipment, and some workers lack initiative to serve clients. So next we move on to the objectives of the system, or the scope and limitations of the system, which are composed of the tangible benefits and intangible. Some of the tangible benefits we have seen with this automation would be cost reduction and avoidance. This is basically to save money on buying equipment. A company wholesale survey web form will be created to be able to canvass which companies could sell their AV or audiovisual products at a lower price if bought by wholesale. Error reduction. To minimize errors, an electronic input system will be integrated into the automation system that we are planning to create. This system will allow the borrower to input all the information needed along with the equipment that is to be borrowed. Sorry for that mistake. With this, the hope is that all the human error due to possible mix-ups due to poor handwriting or similar cases will be taken out, hopefully. Increased flexibility. To make reservations more flexible, an online reservation web form will be created to provide reservation services online, which means that a student will be able to reserve the equipment needed. For example, I myself would need a lapel mic and a speaker to be used in class a week ahead. I would be able to reserve the said equipment way ahead of time, even at the comfort of my own home. Next is the increased speed of activity. To speed up the process, as mentioned above, there will be an electronic input system. This system will allow borrowers to input the equipment needed as in a much faster manner, reducing time that is wasted on asking for a piece of equipment one by one. So those are the top tangible benefits. Next, we move on to the intangible benefits. Competitive necessity. To remind the competitiveness that is needed between employees, an automatic incentive monitoring system will be created. Simple as when an employee stands out due to his or her excellence on their job, an incentive will be automatically added to his or her monthly compensation. Improved organizational planning. To improve the organization of the AVC, an automatic reminder acts like an automatic alarm for any tasks that are needed to be completed or for any work that is needed to be done. Next would be the increased organizational flexibility. To help the organizational flexibility of the AVC, a client suggestion log form will be created to help the AVC adjust to the needs of their clients. Promotion of organizational learning and understanding. To help enhance the values of each worker, a good task web form would be created to list at least one good act done in a week and the value learned from the experience. Next, we move on to the significance of the study. The most talked about problem in the AVC or about the AVC would fall down to time management, as this is the most commonly faced problem of the client. At a point, the workers are not to blame due to the fact that they are just following protocol given to them by the school, but neither is the school to blame due to the fact that they too have already adopted a systematic way of processing transaction to avoid errors, although it is not that efficient. Our study serves to provide a technological solution to the slow transaction that happens. As CA students, me and my group, we would like to propose a system that adapts to the old systematic process of borrowing, returning, and reservation and payment of dues plus inventory and reports in order to lessen errors, improve productivity of the AVC department, and have better time management. If the goal of the company is to provide a learner-centered teaching style, our system would provide a faster link with the AVC to provide that goal, a faster and more efficient path. Next, we go to the scope and limitations of the study. Our program provides a step-by-step recording of borrowing, returning, and reservation of clients that provide a clear and more easily storable record of the day-to-day transaction. But our program limits the ability to provide personal information of the people. Now we move on to the scope and limitations. Our program provides a step-by-step recording of borrowing, returning, and reservation of clients that provides a clear and more easily storable record of the day-to-day transactions. But our program limits the ability to provide personal information of who were the people that had the transaction. Only names will be given and no further personal information. So for the process walkthrough, number one, the AVC workers, who are the ones who manage the AVC, for the borrowers to be able to borrow the said equipment. Number two, the students and the faculties are the affected people or affected class. Number three, the requirements to be met for the process to be able to be started is that, number one, the borrower must be a De La Salle College of St. Benilde student and or faculty. Number two, the borrower must have a valid De La Salle College of St. Benilde identification card or our IDs. The information that are usually inputted are one, information of the borrower, which consists of mainly the name, student number, class, teacher, and time and date where the equipment will be used. As I said, location where the equipment borrowed or reserved is where is it going to be used, and what was the equipment borrowed. Number five, the process done or the processes done are, number one, borrowing equipment and reserving equipment, returning equipment, maintaining equipment, repairing equipment, generating report. So basically, the AVC lets borrowers
borrow, reserve, and or return equipment, audio, visual equipment, and the actual waiting time, including class hours, depending on the class, is estimated at 94 minutes and 30 seconds per borrower. Average. So next, we are here to report about the geographic flowchart that we have designed. So basically, this is it. Okay. So step one, we get the borrower gets the borrowing form.
Number 2, the student or borrower fills out the borrowing form with the required information at the counter. Number 3, hand borrowing form. So next, we are here to report about the geographic flowchart that we have come up with the AVC system. So here it is. Okay. So for step number 1, the borrower gets the borrowing form. Number 2, the borrower fills out the borrowing form with the required information at the counter. Number 3, the borrower hands the borrowing form to the technician along with the DLS-USB ID and asks for the requested equipment. For example, lapel, microphone, speakers, and alike. Number 4, wait as the technician gathers the equipment that was requested. Number 5, take equipment and process. The process goes to the proceeding of the student or faculty to the classroom or site where the equipment will be used. Number 6, after the class, the student proceeds to the AVC returning window to return the said equipment. Number 7, as you give or return the equipment that was used, the technician will return your DLS-USB ID. So for reflection, for the group, we think that yes, there's a need to recognize the different steps that are involved in the existing system. For the purpose of organization, when the steps or stations are clearly sorted out, there is less time wasted on figuring out the steps to follow. The steps the group thinks which are open to eliminating, improving, or shortening is a stage when the borrower fills up the borrowing form with our suggested online or electronic input system. Next, we move on to the process time versus cycle time. As you can see, there are 4 activities that basically, we have 7 activities that are highlighted. Number 1, get the following. Actually, this is based on the geographic flowchart. So our process time for getting the borrowing form is 30 seconds, and cycle time with the waiting time is 40 seconds. Processing time for step number 2 is 1 minute, and cycle time plus the waiting time is 1 minute 30 seconds. Step number 3, 30 seconds with an additional 40 seconds for the cycle time. And for step 4, we have 1 minute and an additional 1 minute, which totals to 2 minutes for the cycle time. For step number 5, we have 90 minutes, depending on the number of minutes per class, which may vary. Which, for example, a class may last for 90 minutes or 2 hours or 3 hours. This may vary again. Number 6, 30 seconds with an additional 10 seconds for cycle time. And finally, for step 7, 1 minute and an additional 30 seconds for the cycle time. So for the process time, we have 94 minutes and 30 seconds, and the cycle time we have 97 minutes. Okay, so we have Mr. Gerwin Tolentino to report about the UML diagrams of the existing system. Thank you.
Hello. As an introduction to the use case diagram, I would like to show you this use case diagram. So our UML is comprised of borrow equipment, return equipment, reserve equipment, maintain equipment inventory, generate reports, and settle penalties. This was the original UML that we were able to formulate, and the next I will show you the UML diagram that we made for the system. As conclusion to what we have made, we splitted the queries into 3 subforms: transaction subform, maintenance subform, and repair subform. And we were able to add 2 more actors, mainly database and website, plus 1 additional UML, that is repair equipment. The first scenario diagram would be borrow equipment. In the borrow equipment, the students or other borrowers borrow equipment from the AVC. So that's generally what happens during borrow equipment. The next would be returning equipment. The borrower returns the equipment that was borrowed from the AVC. Following returning equipment, reservation equipment. The students or other borrowers reserve equipment from the AVC. Mainly, you also need ID, like the past 2 diagrams. Next scenario would be maintaining equipment, where the AVC will check, repair, or logs all equipment in their position. So this mainly starts during when the worker passes the log of the inventory. Next would be generating reports, where the AVC creates feasible reports on transactions done. So mainly, this is where they write down all transactions done in logs. Next would be settle penalties. On settle penalties, the borrower will pay his/her dues at the accounting and will be able to receive his or her ID from the AVC, because if you have penalties, the AVC will take your ID and you will only be able to take it back after paying your dues. Lastly would be repair equipment. This was not originally in the actual use case diagram before, but this is one of our additions to the system that our group members proposed. So in repair equipment, the AVC worker fixes, repairs the equipment that was broken. So unlike maintain equipment, they only check whether if the equipment is broken, but in repair equipment, they actually fix the equipment or check if it's fixable or not. This is the basic flow of repair equipment. First, the AVC worker checks all equipment that are broken or malfunctioning. This happens after maintaining equipment or during scheduled maintenance. The next step would be the AVC worker now separates the broken ones that are hard to fix and the ones that are easy to fix. Next, the AVC worker will now organize that they can fix. If not, the alternative flows like this. If the damaged equipment cannot be repaired by the AVC worker, the next step would be the AVC worker hires a specialist to fix the equipment. Next is the AVC worker keeps the ID of the borrower. If the equipment is fixable, the step would be the equipment is fixed and ready to use. And this is the activity diagram. This is the activity diagram for borrow equipment. So it starts by the student or the borrower borrows the equipment and the AVC checks if it is available. If available and the ID is approved, the item is given to the borrower, and if not, if the ID is not feasible, then it is rejected and the transaction ends. But if the item is available and the ID is approved, then the borrower is able to borrow the actual equipment. During returning equipment, this is what happens. The borrower returns the equipment, then the AVC checks if it is broken or not. If it's not broken, the AVC returns the ID of the borrower and takes the equipment. If not, the AVC will take the equipment and keep the ID of the borrower. During reserving equipment, the borrower gives the ID, then the worker checks if the item to be reserved is available. If it's available, the worker will reserve the item, and when the borrower returns, he will give the item. At the same time, he will also take the ID at that time. But if the item is not available, the AVC will check for it. If it's not, then the AVC will just ask if the borrower would like to have another transaction and end. So this is how the maintenance works.
AVC technician will verify all the number of equipments as logged in on the logbook or the reports that we will make in the system. The AVC technician will verify the conditions of the equipment. Next, the AVC technician will note down any anomalies that he/she has seen in the listed equipment. Or this is another alternate flow of what will happen. The technician will take note of all the number of equipments in the inventory. If there is an equipment that is missing, the technician will note down the indicated of loss. The technician will trace the borrower of the said missing item. Then the technician shall verify the working condition of the equipment. If there is damage to the equipment, the technician shall note down damage to the equipment. Then the technician shall now trace the origin of the damage and then done through tracing and borrowers of said equipment. So, now we generate reports. The personnel retrieves the logbook, the personnel encodes the logbook information, then the personnel summarizes past reports, and then the personnel creates a report form. But if the logbook is not found, the personnel reports to the AVC head, and then the personnel waits for further instruction. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Benilde. Next is settle penalties. The ABC personnel gives out the penalty slip. After that, the borrower's ID is confiscated until he/she settles the penalties. Then the borrower heads out to the accounting office to pay the penalties. Then the accounting prints out the receipt and hands to the borrower. Then the borrower now returns to the AVC and shows the receipt, then gives her ID back. But if the borrower lost the penalty slip, the borrower can ask for another penalty slip from the AVC and return to the paying of the dues. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Done. Lastly is the repair equipment. The AVC worker checks all equipment that are broken or malfunctioning. Then the AVC now separates the broken ones that are hard to fix and ones that are easy to fix. The AVC worker now organizes that they are fixed. Then the equipment is fixed and ready to use. But if the damaged equipment cannot be repaired by the AVC worker hires a specialist. Then the AVC worker keeps the ID of the borrower until further notice. Here is a sneak peek of what our web form would look like. This is for the borrowing form, the database web form. This is our equipment web form, the login web form when you log in if you want to go online, our file maintenance web form, repair table, reservation web form online, you can reserve, return web form, settle penalties, transaction form. All these forms can be found in our prototype